6 months of silent planning. One violent husband. A single ticket to freedom that might cost her everything. Elena Cross is about to discover that escaping a billionaire's cage is only the beginning. Because the stranger in seat 12A isn't just offering her safety. He's offering her war. This is a story about the moment survival turns into rebellion, when running away becomes fighting back, and when the deadliest man on the plane might be the only reason she lives to see tomorrow. If you're here for the journey, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far Elena's story reaches. Let's begin. The alarm didn't go off. Elena Cross had planned for 6 months, counted every second, memorized every step of her escape down to the weight of her shoes and the angle of the hallway camera, but she hadn't planned for the alarm to stay silent at 4:47 a.m. She woke at 5:02, 15 minutes late. Her heart kicked against her ribs so hard she thought Victor might hear it from the master suite 3 doors down. The room was dark except for the blue glow of the security panel by the door, its tiny light pulsing like a heartbeat, like a countdown, like the last few seconds of her entire life if she didn't move right now. She didn't breathe. She just moved. The duffel bag was already packed, hidden inside a decorative luggage trunk that Victor's interior designer had placed in the corner and never touched again. Elena had counted on that. She'd counted on a lot of things, his patterns, his schedule, his arrogance, but 15 minutes could ruin everything. She pulled the bag out, checked the zipper. Clothes, cash, passport, prepaid phone. Nothing sentimental, nothing that would make her hesitate. Her hands were shaking. They'd been shaking for 6 months. She slipped into the hallway barefoot, the marble cold enough to sting. The house was massive, silent, suffocating. 12,000 square feet of imported stone and custom everything, and Elena had learned to hate every inch of it. She moved past the gallery wall of photos, Victor shaking hands with senators, Victor at charity galas, Victor holding her waist in a designer gown while his fingers pressed bruises into her skin just out of frame. She didn't look at them. The side staircase was her route. The main stairs were too exposed, too close to the security office where Victor's night guard sat watching 8 monitors and drinking coffee that smelled like burnt soil. Elena had timed his bathroom breaks. She had timed everything. She made it down the stairs, through the side hallway, past the kitchen where the smell of last night's dinner still clung to the air, something with rosemary that she'd barely touched because Victor had spent the entire meal talking about a merger while his hand sat on her thigh like a brand. The service door was her exit. It led to the garden path, which led to the side gate, which led to the street where a cab she'd scheduled under a fake name would be waiting at 5:15. She was already late. Her fingers found the door handle. It was cool, smooth, exactly as she'd practiced. She turned it slowly, the mechanism clicking so softly she almost didn't hear it over the sound of her own pulse hammering in her ears. The door opened. Cold air hit her face. She stepped outside, and that's when she heard his voice. Leaving without saying goodbye? Elena froze. Victor was standing in the garden 20 feet away, still in his pajama pants and a white undershirt, holding a glass of something dark. Scotch, probably. He drank it when he couldn't sleep, which meant he drank it often, which meant he was unpredictable, which meant Elena had just walked into the worst possible version of this moment. Her stomach dropped. I was just... she started, but her voice came out wrong, thin and scared, and she hated it. You were just what? Victor's tone was light, almost amused. He took a sip from his glass, his eyes never leaving hers. Taking a walk? At 5 in the morning? With a bag? She didn't answer. He smiled. Come here. Victor, I said come here. The warmth drained out of her body. She knew that voice. She knew what came after that voice. But she didn't move toward him. For the first time in 2 years, Elena Cross did not obey her husband. Victor's smile faded. Elena. His voice dropped, and the garden seemed to get smaller, the walls closer, the air thinner. You're making a mistake. I'm leaving, she said, and the words felt like broken glass coming out of her throat. He laughed. Actually laughed, low and sharp. No, you're not. I am. With what? He gestured at her with the glass, liquid sloshing. You think you can just walk out? You think there's anywhere I won't find you? You think you have rights here? She didn't argue, she just turned and ran. She made it 4 steps before he grabbed her, his hand locked around her arm, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise, again, always again. And he yanked her backwards so fast her feet left the ground. The duffel bag hit the stone path. She hit it a second later, shoulder first, pain cracking through her like lightning. "You don't leave me," Victor said, standing over her now, and his voice was calm, controlled, the same voice he used in board meetings. "You don't embarrass me. You don't make me look weak." Elena tasted blood. She'd bitten her tongue. "Please," she whispered. "Please what?" She didn't answer. He crouched down close enough that she could smell the scotch on his breath, see the vein pulsing in his temple. "You signed papers, Elena. You took vows. You're mine. Legally, publicly, completely. And if you ever try this again—" The security light by the door flicked on. Victor stopped mid-sentence. The side gate was open. A cab was idling just beyond it, headlights cutting through the pre-dawn dark. Victor's face changed. The control slipped. Rage took its place, hot and immediate. "You called a cab?" His voice was incredulous, like she'd just insulted him in a way he couldn't compute. "You actually—" Elena didn't wait for him to finish. She grabbed the duffel bag, rolled to her feet, and sprinted. This time, she didn't stop. She heard Victor shout behind her, something vicious, something that sounded like her name mixed with a threat. But she didn't look back. She ran through the gate, past the fountain, across the driveway stones that cut into her bare feet, and she threw herself into the cab so hard the driver yelped. "Drive," she gasped. "Drive right now." The driver hesitated, eyes wide, looking past her toward the house. Victor was coming. "Drive," Elena screamed. The cab lurched forward. She twisted in her seat, watching through the rear window as Victor stopped at the edge of the driveway, his face illuminated by the taillights. He didn't chase the car. He didn't need to. He just stood there, glass still in hand, watching her disappear. And he smiled. The airport was chaos. Elena stumbled through the automatic doors at 6:20 a.m., barefoot, bruised, and convinced that any second Victor's security team would appear and drag her back. She'd changed in the cab bathroom at a gas station 2 miles from the house. Jeans, hoodie, sneakers, sunglasses, even though the sun wasn't up yet. The driver had asked if she was okay. She'd paid him in cash and didn't answer. Check-in was automated. She used the fake ID she'd bought 3 months ago from a guy in a parking garage who didn't ask questions as long as the money was real. The name on the ticket was Sarah Nichols. 29 years old, no husband, no history. She made it through security. No one stopped her. No alarms went off. She walked to gate C7, sat in the corner with her back to the wall, and waited for her hands to stop shaking. They didn't. Boarding started at 7:45. Elena was the first one on the plane. She found her seat, 12B, window, coach, as far from first class as the booking site would allow, and shoved her bag under the seat in front of her. Her shoulder still ached from hitting the stone. Her feet were raw. Her tongue was swollen where she'd bitten it. But she was on the plane. She was leaving. The cabin filled slowly. A family with 2 kids. A businessman in a wrinkled suit. A college student with headphones the size of dinner plates. And then a man in a black coat slid into seat 12A. Elena didn't look at him. She didn't look at anyone. She kept her eyes on the window, watching the ground crew load luggage, watching the wings flex slightly in the wind, watching for any sign of Victor's people storming the plane. The man beside her didn't speak. He didn't pull out a phone or a laptop. He just sat there, still and silent, like he was used to waiting. The flight attendant came by with the safety demonstration. Elena didn't listen. She was too busy counting the seconds until the door closed, until the plane pushed back, until Richmond disappeared beneath her and she could finally breathe. The engine started. The plane moved. And for the first time in 6 months, Elena felt something other than fear. She felt hope. It lasted exactly 11 minutes. But the turbulence hit somewhere over the Appalachians. The plane dropped, jerked sideways, and Elena's seatbelt cut into her ribs hard enough to make her gasp. The cabin lights flickered. A woman 3 rows back made a noise that was half scream, half prayer. Elena gripped the armrest. The man beside her didn't move. The plane stabilized. The seatbelt sign dinged off, and the flight attendant's voice came over the intercom with an apology and an offer of complimentary drinks. Elena exhaled slowly. That's when she realized her hoodie sleeve had ridden up. The bruises on her forearm were visible, dark purple, almost black in places, finger-shaped and recent. She yanked the sleeve down, but it was too late. The man in 12A had already seen them. Elena didn't look at him. She kept her eyes forward, her jaw tight, her breathing controlled. She waited for the questions, the pity, the awkward concern that people always offered when they saw too much. But he didn't say anything. He just shifted slightly in his seat, angling his body so that he was blocking the view of anyone passing in the aisle, giving her space without making it obvious. It was such a small thing. But it was the first kind thing anyone had done for her in so long that Elena almost cried. She didn't, though. She just sat there, staring at the seat back in front of her, trying to disappear. "You want the window shade down?" the man asked quietly. His voice was low, neutral, with an accent she couldn't place. Not southern, not quite northern. Somewhere else. Elena glanced at him for the first time. He was older than her, mid-30s maybe, with dark hair cut short and a face that looked like it had seen too many bad days and stopped counting. There was a scar along his jawline, thin and pale, the kind that didn't come from an accident. His clothes were expensive but understated. Black coat, black shirt, no jewelry except a watch that probably cost more than her first car. He wasn't looking at her bruises. He was looking at her face. "I'm fine," Elena said. "I didn't ask if you were fine," he replied. "I asked if you wanted the shade down." She hesitated, then nodded. He reached across her, carefully, not touching, and pulled the shade halfway closed, dimming the light without cutting it off completely. "Thank you," she said. He didn't answer. The flight attendant came by with the drink cart. The man ordered whiskey, neat. Elena asked for water. When the attendant moved on, he spoke again. "You running from something or toward something?" Elena's chest tightened. "I don't know you." "No," he agreed. "You don't. So maybe don't ask questions like that." "Fair." Silence settled between them, but it didn't feel hostile. It felt neutral, like he'd made an offer and she'd declined, and that was the end of it. Elena sipped her water. The man drank his whiskey in 2 swallows and set the empty cup on his tray table. 5 minutes passed. Then he said, "I'm Roman." She didn't respond. "You don't have to tell me your name," he added, "but if you need help when we land, I can make sure you get where you're going without anyone following." Elena turned to look at him fully now, her pulse picking up. "Why would you say that?" "Because I've seen people run before," Roman said simply, "and I know what it looks like when someone's about to get caught." Her throat went dry. "You don't have to explain," he interrupted, his tone still calm, still even. "But when we land, there's going to be a man in a gray suit waiting near baggage claim. He's going to have a phone in his hand, and he's going to be looking for someone. If that someone is you, you're not getting past him alone." Elena's blood went cold. "How do you—" "I saw him board in Richmond," Roman said. "He didn't sit down. He talked to the gate agent, showed her a photo, and got back off. Which means he's not on this flight. Which means he's waiting on the other end." Her hand started shaking again. "Hey." Roman's voice softened just slightly. "Breathe." "I can't." Elena's voice cracked. "I can't go back." "Then don't." "You don't understand." "I understand enough," Roman said, and there was something in his tone now, something hard and final. "You stay close to me when we deplane. You don't look at him. You don't react. I'll handle it." "Why would you help me?" He met her eyes, and for the first time she saw something in his expression that wasn't cold or distant. It was recognition. "Because someone helped me once," Roman said quietly, "and I didn't say thank you." They landed at 10:37 a.m. The plane taxied to the gate, the seatbelt sign turned off, and passengers started pulling bags from overhead compartments and crowding the aisles. Elena didn't move. Roman stood, pulled down a small black duffel from the overhead bin, and looked at her. "Ready?" "No," she thought. "Yes," she said. They exited together. Roman walked slightly ahead of her, close enough that anyone watching would assume they were traveling together. His stride was measured, unhurried, and Elena forced herself to match it, even though every instinct was screaming at her to run. The The jetway smelled like recycled air and coffee. Her pulse was so loud in her ears she almost didn't hear the gate agent wishing them a good day. They stepped into the terminal, and there he was, gray suit, phone in hand, standing near the baggage claim escalators, scanning every face that passed. Elena recognized him immediately. Martin Voss, Victor's head of security, the man who had driven her to doctor's appointments and charity events and made sure she never went anywhere alone. The man who had stood outside her bedroom door at night, listening. Her steps faltered. Roman's hand touched her elbow, brief, steadying. "Keep walking," he said under his breath. They moved past a coffee stand, a newsstand, a family reunion happening in the middle of the corridor. Martin's eyes swept over them. For a moment, Elena thought he'd seen her, but Roman shifted his position, stepped slightly to the left, and her face disappeared behind his shoulder. They kept walking. 30 feet. 20. 10. They passed Martin Voss without him looking up from his phone. Elena didn't breathe until they were through the sliding doors and outside in the passenger pickup lane. The air was cooler here, sharper, and it hit her like a slap. "You're okay," Roman said. Elena bent over, hands on her knees, trying not to be sick. "Hey." Roman crouched beside her. "You're okay. He didn't see you." "He will," Elena gasped. "Victor will send more. He'll find me. He always—" "Not if you don't give him the chance." She looked up at him, her vision blurring. "What does that mean?" Roman stood, pulled out his phone, and made a call. "It's me," he said into the receiver. "I need a car. Terminal B. Now." He hung up. 2 minutes later, a black SUV pulled up to the curb. The windows were tinted so dark Elena couldn't see inside. Roman opened the back door. "Get in," he said. Elena hesitated. You don't know me," Roman finished. "I know. But you've got two choices right now. You get in this car and I take you somewhere safe, or you walk back into that terminal and hope Victor's guy doesn't spot you the second time around." Elena looked at the terminal doors, then at the SUV, then at Roman. His expression hadn't changed. No pressure, no urgency, just an offer. She got in the car. Roman slid in beside her, closed the door, and the SUV pulled away from the curb before she could change her mind. The driver didn't speak. Roman didn't speak. Elena sat in silence, watching the airport disappear behind them, and wondered if she'd just traded one cage for another. The car drove for 40 minutes. Elena didn't ask where they were going. She didn't ask who Roman was, or why he had a driver who appeared in under 2 minutes, or why the SUV had bulletproof glass and reinforced panels she could see in the door seams. She just sat there, numb, watching the city roll past. They left the highway, took a series of back roads, pulled into a private driveway that wound through trees so thick she couldn't see the main road anymore. The house appeared suddenly, modern, glass and steel, perched on the edge of a hill with a view that stretched for miles. The SUV stopped. Roman got out first, then opened her door. Elena stepped onto the gravel drive, her legs unsteady. "This is your house?" she asked. "One of them," Roman said. The front door opened before they reached it. A woman stepped out, mid-40s, sharp-eyed, wearing scrubs. "This her?" the woman asked. "Yeah," Roman said. The woman looked Elena up and down, her gaze clinical. "She hurt?" "Probably." "I'm fine," Elena said automatically. The woman raised an eyebrow. "Uh-huh. Inside. Now." Elena glanced at Roman. He nodded. "Dr. Lane, she's good." Elena followed the woman inside. The house was nothing like Victor's. No marble, no gold fixtures, just clean lines, dark wood, and windows that made the whole place feel like it was floating above the trees. Dr. Lane led her to a sitting room and gestured at the couch. "Sit." Elena sat. Dr. Lane pulled out a medical kit, snapped on gloves, and started her examination without asking permission. She checked Elena's eyes, her pulse, the bruises on her arms. "When did this happen?" Dr. Lane asked, fingers gentle on a particularly dark mark. "This morning." "And before that?" Elena didn't answer. Dr. Lane didn't push. She just kept working, her hands efficient and careful. Roman stood in the doorway, watching. "You need to eat," Dr. Lane said eventually, "and sleep, and probably talk to someone who isn't me." I'm fine, Elena repeated. Yeah, you said that already. Dr. Lane packed up her kit. You've got bruised ribs, a mild concussion, and about 15 visible contusions. You're not fine, but you're alive, so let's start there. She stood, looked at Roman. She stays here tonight, minimum. Agreed, Roman said. Dr. Lane left. Elena and Roman were alone. Why are you doing this? Elena asked. Roman stepped into the room, hands in his pockets. Because I can. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got right now. Elena stood, even though her ribs protested. I need to keep moving. I can't stay here. Victor will what? Roman's voice was calm, but there was an edge to it now. Send his security team? File a missing persons report? Go on the news and play the worried husband? Yes. Good, Roman said. Let him. Elena stared at him. You don't understand who he is. I know exactly who he is. Roman pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, and held it up. Elena looked. It was a photo of Victor, not a publicity shot. A surveillance photo. Victor leaving a building she didn't recognize, shaking hands with a man whose face was blurred out. Victor Hale, Roman said, 42. CEO of Hale Industries. Net worth approximately $3.7 billion. Married to Elena Cross 2 years ago in a private ceremony. No prenup, which means he's confident you'll never leave. Or stupid. Possibly both. Elena's throat tightened. How do you... I know a lot of things, Roman said, putting the phone away. And now that you're here, Victor's going to learn that there are people in this world he can't touch. You don't know him. No, Roman agreed. But he doesn't know me either. He walked to the window, looked out at the trees. You can leave whenever you want, he said quietly. I'm not keeping you here. But if you stay, I can make sure he doesn't find you. And if he tries, I can make sure he regrets it. Elena didn't know what to say, so she asked the only question that mattered. Who are you? Roman turned back to her, and for the first time she saw something in his eyes that looked almost like regret. Someone who's very good at making problems disappear, he said, and Elena realized with a clarity that felt like ice water that she'd just walked out of one dangerous man's house and into another's. The difference was, this one was offering her a choice. She just wasn't sure yet what it would cost. Elena didn't sleep that night. Dr. Lane had left her in a guest room on the second floor. White walls, clean sheets, a window that overlooked the forest, and told her to rest. But rest required letting your guard down, and Elena hadn't done that in 2 years. So she sat on the edge of the bed, still dressed, watching the door and waiting for it to open. It didn't. Around 3 in the morning, she heard footsteps in the hallway. They paused outside her room, stayed there for maybe 10 seconds, then moved on. She didn't know if it was Roman or someone else. She didn't open the door to check. When the sun finally came up, pale and cold through the trees, Elena stood and walked to the window. The view was ridiculous. Endless forest, hills rolling into the distance, no other houses visible. It was the kind of place people paid millions for, the kind of place Victor would have bought just to prove he could. But this wasn't Victor's house, and that made it the strangest place Elena had been in years. There was a knock at the door. Elena tensed. "It's Lane," a voice called. "I'm coming in." The door opened before Elena could respond. Dr. Lane stepped inside holding a tray with toast, eggs, and coffee. She set it on the dresser and looked at Elena with the same clinical expression she'd worn the night before. "You didn't sleep," Lane said. "I'm fine." "Yeah, you keep saying that." Lane gestured at the tray. "Eat. You're too thin and you look like hell." Elena didn't argue. She sat back down on the bed and picked up the toast. It was warm, buttered, completely normal. She took a bite and her stomach immediately reminded her she hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. Lane watched her eat for a moment, then said, "Roman wants to talk to you when you're ready." "About what?" "That's between you and him." Elena set the toast down. "Is he always like this?" "Like what?" "Picking up strangers, bringing them home." Lane's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "No, you're the first." That didn't make Elena feel better. "Why me?" Lane shrugged. "You'll have to ask him that." She left, closing the door behind her. Elena finished the eggs, drank the coffee, and stared at her reflection in the window glass. She looked exactly like what she was. A woman who'd run out of options and gotten lucky. Or unlucky. She still wasn't sure which. 20 minutes later, she went downstairs. The house was quiet in the daylight, all sharp angles and open space. She found Roman in what looked like an office. Dark wood desk, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves that actually had books on them. He was on the phone, speaking in a language Elena didn't recognize. Not Spanish, not French. Something harsher. He saw her in the doorway and gestured for her to sit. Elena stayed standing. Roman finished the call, set the phone down, and looked at her. "You eat?" he asked. "Yes." "Good." He leaned back in his chair. "We need to talk about what happens next." "I leave," Elena said. "That's what happens next." "And go where?" She didn't have an answer for that. Roman waited, patient, like he had all the time in the world. "I'll figure it out," Elena said finally. "Will you?" It wasn't a question. "You have money?" "Some." "How much?" "Enough." Roman raised an eyebrow. "Enough for what? A week? A month? You think Victor's going to stop looking after a month?" Elena's jaw tightened. "I'll manage." "No," Roman said quietly. "You won't." The words hit harder than they should have. "You don't know that," Elena said. "I do, actually." Roman stood, walked around the desk, and leaned against it, arms crossed. "You're running on adrenaline and hope, and both of those run out fast. You need a plan. A real one. And unless you've got a fake passport, a new identity, and about $50,000 in untraceable cash, you don't have one." Elena wanted to argue. She couldn't. "So what do you suggest?" she asked, hating how small her voice sounded. "You stay here," Roman said. "For now, until we figure out how to make sure Victor can't touch you." "And then what? I just live here? Hide?" "If that's what it takes." Elena shook her head. "I didn't run away just to stay trapped somewhere else." "This isn't a trap." "Isn't it?" Roman's expression didn't change. "You can leave right now if you want. I'll drive you to the bus station myself. Give you cash, won't stop you." "But you'll be dead or back with Victor in 72 hours. The bluntness of it made Elena flinch. Roman pushed off the desk, walked to the window. "Victor's already filed a missing persons report. It hit the news this morning. Worried husband, devoted wife, concerns for her mental health. He's good, I'll give him that." Elena's chest tightened. "He's lying." "I know." "Then why?" "Because lies work," Roman interrupted, still looking out the window. "Especially when they come from a billionaire with a PR team and a clean public image. Right now, half the state thinks you're in danger. The other half thinks you're unstable. Either way, the second you surface, someone's calling it in." Elena sat down hard in one of the leather chairs. "What do I do?" she whispered. Roman turned back to face her. "You let me handle it." "How?" "That's not something you need to worry about." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you're getting right now." Elena looked up at him, searching his face for something. Compassion, pity, ulterior motive. She didn't find any of it, just that same calm, unreadable expression. "Why do you care?" she asked. Roman was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I told you, someone helped me once." "That's still not a real answer." "It's the one I have." Elena wanted to push harder, but something in his tone told her she wouldn't get anywhere. So instead she asked, "What do you want in return?" Roman's eyes narrowed slightly. "What makes you think I want something?" "Everyone wants something." "Not from you." "Then why?" "Because I can," Roman said again, and this time there was an edge to it. "Because Victor Hale is the kind of man who thinks money and power mean he can do whatever he wants to, whoever he wants, and I don't like men like that." Elena stared at him. "So this is personal," she said slowly. "No, this is principle." "What's the difference?" Roman almost smiled. Almost. "Personal means I have a stake in it. Principle means I'd do it even if I didn't." He walked back to the desk, pulled open a drawer, and took out a folder. He set it in front of Elena. "Open it," he said. Elena hesitated, then flipped the folder open. Inside were photos, documents, financial records, all of them related to Victor. Her stomach dropped. "Where did you get these?" she asked. "I have resources." That's not... It doesn't matter where I got them, Roman said. What matters is what they show. Elena scanned the documents. Real estate deals that didn't make sense, shell companies, payments to offshore accounts, and photos. Victor with men she didn't recognize, in places she'd never been. "What is this?" she asked. "Proof that your husband isn't as clean as he pretends to be." Elena looked up. "You're going to blackmail him?" "No. I'm going to destroy him." The certainty in Roman's voice made her pulse spike. "You can't." "I can," Roman said, "and I will, but only if you want me to." Elena's hands were shaking again. She closed the folder, pushed it away. "This is insane." "Probably. You don't even know me." "I know enough." "You don't know anything," Elena snapped, standing now. "You don't know what he's capable of. You don't know how far he'll go. You think a few documents are going to stop him? You think—" "I think," Roman interrupted, his voice dropping, "that Victor Hale has spent his entire life getting away with things because no one's ever hit back hard enough. And I think you deserve better than spending the rest of your life looking over your shoulder." Elena opened her mouth, closed it. She didn't know what to say. Roman walked to the door, paused with his hand on the frame. "Think about it. You've got time." He left. Elena stood alone in the office, staring at the folder on the desk. And for the first time since she'd run, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to keep running. The next 2 days passed in a strange, suspended kind of silence. Elena stayed in the house, not because Roman told her to, but because she didn't know where else to go. She spent most of her time in the guest room or walking the grounds, trying to make sense of what her life had become. Roman kept his distance. She'd see him in passing, on the phone in his office, talking to Lane in the kitchen, standing on the back deck at night smoking a cigarette he never finished. He didn't push her, didn't ask her what she'd decided. He just let her be. It was disorienting. On the third morning, Elena found Lane in the kitchen making coffee. "You look better," Lane said without turning around. "I feel like hell," Elena admitted. "That's normal?" Lane poured 2 mugs, handed one to Elena. "Trauma doesn't heal in 3 days." Elena wrapped her hands around the mug. "How long have you known Roman?" 8 years. "What does he do? Really?" Lane took a sip of her coffee, considering. "He solves problems." "That's vague." "It's accurate." Elena frowned. "What kind of problems?" "The kind most people can't solve on their own." "Is he—" Elena hesitated. "Is he dangerous?" Lane looked at her then, really looked at her. "To people who deserve it, yes. To you, no." "How do you know?" "Because I've seen him dangerous," Lane said simply. "And this isn't it." Elena wanted to ask more, but Lane's phone buzzed. She checked it, frowned, and set her mug down. "I have to go," Lane said. "Emergency at the clinic. You good here?" Elena nodded. Lane left, and Elena was alone in the kitchen with her coffee and her thoughts. She didn't hear Roman come in. "You're up early," he said from the doorway. Elena turned. He was dressed the same as always, black shirt, dark pants, that same unreadable expression. "Couldn't sleep," she said. "Yeah, I figured." He walked to the counter, poured his own coffee. For a moment they just stood there, 2 strangers in a quiet kitchen, and it almost felt normal. Then Roman said, "Victor's escalating." Elena's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" Roman pulled out his phone, brought up a news article, and handed it to her. The headline read, "Billionaire offers $100,000 reward for information on missing wife." Below it was a photo of Elena, not one she remembered taking. A candid shot, probably from some event Victor had dragged her to. She looked happy in the photo. She remembered being miserable. "He's smart," Roman said. $100,000 is enough to get people looking, but not so much it seems desperate. He's playing the concerned husband perfectly. Elena set the phone down. "This just makes it worse." "It makes it public," Roman corrected. "Which means he's committed now. He can't back down without looking weak." "So what do we do?" Roman looked at her. "We." Elena met his eyes. "You said I had time to think. I've thought." And I don't want to run anymore." Something shifted in Roman's expression. Not quite a smile, but close. "Good," he said. "So what's the plan?" Roman set his coffee down, leaned against the counter. First, we need to make sure you're legally protected. That means getting you a lawyer who isn't afraid of Victor. I don't have money for... I do. Elena shook her head. I can't let you... You're not letting me do anything, Roman said. I'm choosing to do it. There's a difference. Why? We've been over this. No, Elena said, stepping closer. We haven't. You keep giving me non-answers. Someone helped you once. You don't like men like Victor. Fine. But that's not enough. So tell me the truth. Why are you really doing this? Roman was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, You ever meet someone and know instantly exactly what they've been through? Not because they told you, but because you recognize it? Elena didn't answer. I saw you on that plane, Roman continued, his voice low. Saw the way you were sitting, the way you kept checking the aisle, the way you flinched when the turbulence hit. And I knew. Knew what? That you were running from someone who'd convinced you that you deserved it. Elena's throat tightened. I had someone like that once, Roman said. Long time ago, and no one helped me. So I had to help myself. Took years. Cost me things I can't get back. He paused. You don't have years, and you shouldn't have to pay that cost. Elena's hands were shaking again. What happened to them? She asked quietly. The person who hurt you. Roman's jaw tightened. They're not a problem anymore, he said. The way he said it made Elena's blood run cold. But it also made her feel for the first time like maybe she was standing next to someone who actually understood. Okay, she said. Okay, what? Okay, I'm in. Whatever the plan is, I'm in. Roman nodded once. Then we start today. Us. The lawyer's name was Michael Cartwright, and he looked exactly like Elena expected. 50s, gray suit, tired eyes that had seen too many bad cases. Roman had driven her into the city to meet him, not at a law office, but at a private club that required a keycard to enter. They sat in a back room with no windows. Cartwright listened while Elena explained everything. The marriage, the abuse, the escape. He didn't take notes, didn't interrupt. Just listened with the kind of focus that made Elena feel like maybe, for the first time, someone was actually hearing her. When she finished, Cartwright leaned back in his chair. This is going to be ugly, he said. I know, Elena said. I mean really ugly. Victor's going to fight this with everything he has. Money, lawyers, PR. He'll make you look unstable. He'll dig up every mistake you've ever made and put it on display. I don't care. Cartwright raised an eyebrow. You should. She's aware of the risks, Roman said from his spot near the door. Cartwright glanced at him. And you're, a friend, Roman said. Right. Cartwright didn't look convinced, but he didn't push it. He turned back to Elena. Here's what we do. We file for a restraining order first, get it on record that you're afraid of him. Then we file for divorce with a claim of domestic abuse. We'll need evidence. I have bruises, Elena said. Pictures? She shook her head. Then we get them now. Medical exam, full documentation, and we'll need testimony. People who saw the abuse, heard it, anything. Elena's stomach sank. There's no one. No friends? Family? Staff? Victor made sure I didn't have friends. My family's gone. And the staff? She trailed off. They work for him. Cartwright sighed. This is going to be harder than I thought. Can you do it? Roman asked. I can try, but without corroboration, it's her word against his. And his word comes with $3 billion behind it. Then we find corroboration, Roman said. Cartwright looked at him. How? Roman didn't answer. Cartwright seemed to understand that he wasn't going to get one. Fine, Cartwright said. I'll start the paperwork. But Elena, you need to understand something. The moment we file, Victor's going to know where you are, or at least that you're working with a lawyer. He'll come after you harder. Let him, Elena said. Cartwright studied her for a moment, then nodded. All right, I'll be in touch. They left the club 20 minutes later. Roman drove in silence for a while, navigating the city traffic with the kind of ease that suggested he'd done this 1,000 times. Finally, Elena said, He's right, you know, about the evidence. I know. So what do we do? Roman glanced at her. We get creative. What does that mean? It means Victor's not as careful as he thinks he is. Everyone makes mistakes. We just have to find his. And if we can't, we will. Elena wanted to believe him. She wasn't sure she did, but she also didn't have any other options. Yet, that night, back at the house, Roman called Elena into his office. She found him sitting at his desk, laptop open, several monitors displaying what looked like security footage and financial spreadsheets. "Sit," he said. Elena sat. Roman turned one of the monitors toward her. "Recognize this?" It was footage from inside Victor's house, the hallway outside the master bedroom, time-stamped 3 months ago. Elena's chest tightened. "How did you—" "Victor has security cameras everywhere," Roman said, "including places you probably didn't know about. He keeps the footage on a private server." "You hacked his server?" "No, I had someone else do it." Elena didn't know what to say. Roman clicked to another file. "This is from 2 months ago." The footage showed Elena in the kitchen, her back to the camera. Victor entered the frame, said something she couldn't hear, and grabbed her arm hard enough that she stumbled. Elena looked away. "There's more," Roman said quietly. "A lot more. Months of it." "Why are you showing me this?" "Because this is your evidence," Roman said. "This is what Cartwright needs, proof that what you're saying is true." Elena's hands curled into fists. "Victor doesn't know you have this. No. He's going to lose his mind when he finds out." "Good." Elena looked at Roman. "You're enjoying this." Roman's expression didn't change. "I'm not enjoying anything, but I'm not going to apologize for taking down a man who deserves it. You don't even know him. I know enough. You keep saying that because it's true." Elena stood, walked to the window. Outside, the forest was dark, the trees black shapes against the night sky. "What happens after?" she asked. "After what?" "After Victor's gone. After this is over. What happens to me?" Roman was quiet for a moment. "That's up to you," he said. Elena turned back to face him. "Is it?" "Yes. Because right now it feels like I'm just trading one person making decisions for me for another." Roman closed the laptop, stood. "I'm not making decisions for you, Elena. I'm giving you options. There's a difference." "Is there?" "You can walk out that door right now," Roman said, his voice level. "I'll give you money, a car, a new ID if you want it. You'll never see me again. Your choice." Elena stared at him. "But if I stay, then we finish this together. And then? Then you're free." The word hung in the air between them. Free. Elena hadn't felt free in so long she'd almost forgotten what it meant. "Okay," she said finally. "We finish it." Roman nodded, and for the first time since she'd run, Elena felt like maybe she wasn't doing this alone anymore. What? Over the next week, things moved fast. Cartwright filed the restraining order. It was denied. Victor's lawyers argued that there was no credible threat and that Elena had left voluntarily, but the filing itself made the news. Wife of billionaire Victor Hale files restraining order, claims abuse. The story exploded. Victor issued a statement through his PR team calling Elena's claims baseless and hurtful. He appeared on a morning talk show, looking exhausted and heartbroken, talking about his concern for Elena's well-being and his hope that she'd come home safely. He was convincing. Elena watched the interview in Roman's office, her stomach churning. "He's good at this," she said. "He's had practice," Roman replied. "People believe him." "Some people, not all." Elena shook her head. "This isn't going to work. He's too powerful, too connected." Roman turned off the monitor. "He's not invincible." "How do you know?" "Because no one is." That night, Roman made a call. Elena didn't hear the conversation, but an hour later a man showed up at the house. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a face that looked like it had stopped a few fists. Roman introduced him as Alexei. "He's going to be staying here for a while," Roman said. "Why?" Elena asked. "Security. I thought this place was secure." "It is. But Victor knows you filed the restraining order, which means he knows you're serious about leaving. And that makes you a problem he needs to solve." Elena's pulse kicked up. "You think he'll come here?" "I think he'll try." "And if he does?" Roman glanced at Alexei. Alexei smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. Then he learns what happens when you underestimate people, Roman said. Elena wanted to argue, but she didn't, because deep down, part of her wanted Victor to try. Part of her wanted to see him fail. The next morning, Cartwright called. "We've got a problem," he said. Roman put him on speaker. "What kind of problem?" Roman asked. "Victor's filed a counterclaim. He's saying Elena stole from him money, jewelry, documents. He's claiming she's mentally unstable and that the restraining order is part of a plan to extort him." Elena's blood ran cold. "That's insane. It's strategic," Cartwright said. "He's trying to control the narrative, make you look like the villain." "Can he do that?" Elena asked. "He can try, and with his resources, he'll make it convincing." "So what do we do?" Roman asked. "We hit back harder. I'm going to file a motion to compel discovery, force Victor to turn over financial records, communications, everything. If he's hiding something, we'll find it." "How long will that take?" Elena asked. "Weeks, maybe months." "I don't have months," Elena said. "Then we make noise," Cartwright replied. "We go public. Get your story out there before he buries it." Elena looked at Roman. He was already nodding. "Do it," Roman said. Cartwright hung up. Elena sat down hard in the nearest chair. "This is getting out of control," she said. "No," Roman said. "This is it working." "How is this working?" "Because Victor's panicking. He's making moves. And when people panic, they make mistakes. Or they get more dangerous." Roman didn't argue with that. That afternoon, Elena did her first interview. It was with a journalist Cartwright trusted, a woman named Harper Lane, who'd built a career exposing powerful men. They met at a neutral location, a hotel room Roman had rented under a fake name, and Harper recorded everything. Elena told her story. All of it. The fear, the isolation, the bruises, the escape. Harper listened, asked careful questions, and didn't push when Elena's voice broke. When it was over, Harper turned off the recorder and said, "This is going to get ugly." "I know," Elena said. "Victor's going to come after you with everything he has." "Let him." Harper smiled just a little. "Good. I like people who fight back." The article published 2 days later. Escaping the cage. Elena Cross speaks out against billionaire husband Victor Hale. It was detailed, damning, and it went viral. Within hours, Elena's story was everywhere. News sites, social media, morning shows. People were picking sides. Some believed her. Some called her a liar. Some said she was brave. Some said she was after his money. Victor issued another statement, this one sharper. He called the article defamatory and threatened to sue Harper and the publication. Elena watched it all unfold from Roman's office, feeling like she was standing in the middle of a hurricane. "Are you okay?" Roman asked. "No," Elena said honestly. "Do you regret it?" She thought about that. "No," she said again. Because for the first time in years, people were listening, and that was worth the storm. The storm Elena had expected came faster and harder than she was ready for. Within 48 hours of Harper's article going live, Victor's legal team filed a defamation lawsuit against both Elena and the publication. The amount they were suing for was absurd, $20 million, but the point wasn't the money. The point was to scare her into silence. It didn't work. What did work, however, was the media circus that followed. News vans parked outside Cartwright's office. Reporters called Elena's old phone number, the one she'd abandoned at the airport. Someone found a photo of her from college and posted it online with speculation about her past. Victor's PR team fed stories to friendly outlets about Elena's supposed history of instability, her dependency on prescription medication, lies, all of it, but convincing enough that people started to question her credibility. Elena watched it happen from Roman's house, feeling like she was drowning in real time. "They're saying I made it all up," she told Roman one morning, staring at her laptop screen, "that I'm doing this for money." Roman was standing by the window, looking out at the tree line where Alexei was doing a perimeter check. He didn't turn around. "Let them say it," he said. "Easy for you to say. They're not calling you a liar on national television." "No, but they've called me worse." Elena looked up. "What does that mean?" Roman finally turned. His expression was as unreadable as ever, but there was something in his eyes, something old and tired. "Means I've been through this before," he said. "Different circumstances, same tactics. People with power don't fight fair, they fight to win." And did they? Win? Roman's mouth twitched, almost a smile. I'm still here. Before Elena could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from Cartwright. We need to talk now. She showed it to Roman. Go, he said. I'll drive you. 20 minutes later, they were back at the private club, sitting across from Cartwright in the same windowless room. The lawyer looked worse than last time. Tie loosened, circles under his eyes, the kind of exhaustion that came from working 18-hour days. Victor's playing dirty, Cartwright said without preamble. We knew he would, Elena said. No, I mean dirty. He's got investigators digging into your past. Every job you ever had, every place you lived, every person you dated before him. They're looking for ammunition. Elena's stomach turned. There's nothing to find. Doesn't matter. They'll twist whatever they get. A bad breakup becomes a pattern of instability. A job you quit becomes proof you can't commit to anything. They'll build a narrative. So we build a better one, Roman said. Cartwright looked at him. With what? We've got Elena's testimony and some security footage. That's it. We need more. Then we get more. How? Roman leaned forward. Victor's got enemies, men like him always do. People he screwed over, deals that went bad, employees he fired. We find them, get them talking. Cartwright shook his head. That's not how the law works. Maybe not, but it's how the world works. You're talking about what? Intimidation? Blackmail? I'm talking about leverage. Cartwright rubbed his face. I can't be part of this conversation. Then don't be, Roman said. You focus on the legal side. I'll handle everything else. Roman, I've got this. The certainty in his voice left no room for argument. Cartwright looked at Elena. You're okay with this? Elena thought about Victor on that talk show, playing the worried husband. Thought about the stories circulating online, painting her as unstable, greedy, vindictive. Thought about 2 years of bruises and silence. Yes, she said. Cartwright sighed. Fine, but if this blows back, I don't know anything about it. Understood, Roman said. They left the club and got back in the SUV. Roman didn't start the engine right away. He just sat there, hands on the wheel, staring at nothing. You don't have to do this, Elena said quietly. Yes, I do. Why? Roman finally looked at her. Because I told you I would. That's not a reason. It's my reason. Elena wanted to push, but something in his expression stopped her. There was a wall there, something he wasn't willing to let her past. Not yet. What happens now? She asked instead. Now we go hunting. Elena didn't ask what that meant. She wasn't sure she wanted to know. Over the next week, Roman disappeared for hours at a time. He didn't tell Elena where he was going or who he was meeting, and she didn't ask. Alexei stayed at the house, a silent, constant presence that should have been comforting, but mostly just reminded Elena that she needed protection in the first place. Lane came by every few days to check on her, bringing groceries and occasionally staying for coffee. You're handling this better than I expected, Lane said one afternoon, sitting at the kitchen counter. Elena laughed, but it came out hollow. Am I? You're still standing. That's something. I don't feel like I'm standing. I feel like I'm barely holding on. Lane studied her for a moment. You know what the difference is between surviving and living? What? Surviving is just making it through the day. Living is deciding what comes next. Elena looked down at her coffee. Don't know what comes next. Then figure it out. Because this, Lane gestured around the kitchen. This isn't permanent. Roman's giving you time and space, but eventually you're going to have to decide what you want your life to look like. And it can't just be about running from Victor. It has to be about running towards something. The words stuck with Elena long after Lane left. That night she found herself in Roman's office again. He was at his desk, 3 monitors glowing in the dark, surrounded by papers and file folders. You should be sleeping, he said without looking up. So should you. I don't sleep much. Elena sat in the chair across from him. What are you working on? Background checks, financial records, trying to find cracks in Victor's foundation. Find anything? Roman leaned back, rubbed his eyes. Maybe. There's a real estate deal from 4 years ago that doesn't add up. Property in the Cayman Islands purchased through a shell company. The money trail goes cold, but the timing's suspicious. Suspicious how? It was right after a major contract fell through. Contract that cost a lot of people a lot of money, including some people who don't like losing. Elena frowned. You think Victor stole from them? I think Victor's smarter than that, but I think he might have bent some rules. Maybe broke a few. And if he did, those people want to know about it. So what do we do? I already did it. Made some calls, sent some information to the right people. Elena's chest tightened. What kind of people? Roman looked at her. The kind who don't forgive easily. Roman, Elena, his voice was firm. You wanted this. You said you wanted to fight back. This is what fighting back looks like. It's not clean. It's not fair. But it works. And if someone gets hurt, someone already got hurt, you. The bluntness of it made her flinch. Roman's expression softened, just slightly. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to be honest. Victor's playing for keeps. If we don't hit him hard enough to put him down, he's going to come back at you harder than before. You understand that? Elena nodded slowly. Good. Roman turned back to his monitors. Then trust me. Elena wanted to, but trust was something she'd lost the ability to give freely a long time ago. 3 days later, the news broke. Federal investigators probe Hale Industries for financial irregularities. Elena saw it on the television in the living room, the headline scrolling across the bottom of the screen, while a news anchor speculated about what this might mean for Victor's business empire. Roman walked in, saw what she was watching, and nodded. That was you, Elena said. That was Victor. I just made sure the right people knew where to look. How? Doesn't matter. Elena stood facing him. It does to me. Roman was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I have connections. People who owe me favors. People who know how to move information without leaving fingerprints. That's all you need to know. That's not enough. It has to be. No, it doesn't. Elena stepped closer. You keep saying you're helping me, but you won't tell me who you really are, what you really do. And I'm supposed to just... What? Trust you blindly? Yes. The simplicity of it made her angry. That's not fair, she said. I know. Then why? Because if I tell you everything, Roman interrupted, his voice low, you're going to look at me differently, and I'm not ready for that yet. Elena stared at him. Ready for what? Roman didn't answer. He just walked out. Elena stood alone in the living room, the news anchor's voice droning in the background, and realized that Roman was just as trapped as she was, just in a different kind of cage. The federal investigation moved quickly. Within days, agents showed up at Hale Industries headquarters with warrants. They seized computers, financial records, years of documents. Victor's stock price dropped 12% in a single afternoon. His lawyers issued statements about cooperation and confidence, but the damage was done. The media, which had been split on Elena's story, started to shift. Is Victor Hale the victim or the villain? New questions emerge about billionaires' business practices. Elena watched it all unfold with a mixture of satisfaction and dread. She'd wanted Victor to face consequences, but she also knew that cornered animals were the most dangerous. Cartwright called on a Thursday afternoon. We need to move up the divorce proceedings, he said. Why? Because Victor's bleeding right now. Financially, publicly. If we file while he's weak, we have a better chance of getting a favorable settlement. I don't want his money, Elena said. This isn't about money. It's about making sure he can't come after you later. We need to end this legally, cleanly, so there's no avenue for him to challenge it down the line. Elena looked at Roman, who was standing nearby. He nodded. Okay, Elena said. File it. I'll have the papers ready by tomorrow. Cartwright hung up. Roman walked to the window, his usual spot. You're doing the right thing. Am I? Yes? Then why does it feel like I'm making everything worse? Roman turned to look at her. Because it gets worse before it gets better. That's how this works. And when does it get better? Soon. Elena wished she believed him. That night, she couldn't sleep again. She walked the house, restless and wired, until she ended up on the back deck. The air was cold, sharp, and the forest was just dark shapes against a darker sky. She heard the door open behind her. Roman stepped out, carrying 2 glasses and a bottle of whiskey. You drink? He asked. Not usually. Maybe tonight's a good night to start. He poured 2 fingers into each glass, handed one to Elena. She took it, sipped. It burned going down, but in a way that felt grounding. They stood in silence for a while, drinking and watching the darkness. Finally, Elena said, Lane told me I need to figure out what I'm running toward, not just what I'm running from. She's smart. So what am I supposed to run toward? Roman considered that. What did you want before Victor? Elena thought back. It felt like a lifetime ago. I wanted to finish my degree. I was studying architecture, had 2 semesters left. Why'd you stop? Victor didn't like me going to class, said I didn't need a degree, that my job was to be his wife, not some student. Roman's jaw tightened. And you listened? I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice, Elena laughed bitterly. You don't know what it was like. No, Roman agreed. But I know what it's like to let someone else define who you are. And I know how hard it is to take that power back. Elena looked at him. Is that what you did? Eventually. How long did it take? Too long. They drank in silence again. Then Roman said, When this is over, you should go back. Finish your degree. I can't afford it. I can. Elena shook her head. You've already done too much. I haven't done enough. Roman, I mean it. He turned to face her fully. You're not a victim, Elena. You're someone who survived something most people wouldn't have. And you deserve the chance to become whoever you were supposed to be before Victor stole that from you. Elena's throat tightened. Why do you care so much? She whispered. Roman looked away, out at the forest. Because someone should have cared about me. And no one did. The honesty of it broke something open in Elena's chest. She set down her glass, stepped closer. Thank you, she said quietly. Roman didn't respond, but he didn't move away either. The next morning, Cartwright filed the divorce papers. Victor's response came within hours. He contested everything, claimed the marriage was valid, that Elena had abandoned him without cause, that her allegations were false and motivated by greed. He demanded she return to their home immediately or face legal consequences. Elena read the filing in Cartwright's office, her hands shaking. He's not going to let me go, she said. He doesn't have a choice, Cartwright replied. This isn't up to him anymore. You don't know him. I know the law, and the law is on your side. Elena wanted to believe that, but the law hadn't protected her before. That afternoon, Roman got a call. Elena was in the kitchen when she heard him talking in the next room, his voice low and tense. She couldn't make out the words, but the tone was enough. When he came back, his face was stone. What happened? Elena asked. Victor's people found the house. Her blood went cold. How? Doesn't matter. What matters is they know you're here. Are they coming? Not yet, but they will. Elena stood. Then I need to leave. No. Roman, you're safer here than anywhere else, he said firmly. This house is secure. Alexei's here. I'm here. And I've got people watching the perimeter. That's not enough. It is. Elena wanted to argue, but the certainty in his voice stopped her. How long until they come? She asked. Could be days. Could be hours. And when they do? Roman looked at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw something dangerous in his expression. Then they learn what happens when they cross the wrong person, he said. Elena's pulse spiked. What are you going to do? Whatever I have to. That night the house felt different. Alexei moved through the rooms with a tension Elena hadn't seen before, checking windows, testing locks. Roman spent hours on the phone, speaking in that harsh language she didn't understand, issuing orders to people she'd never meet. Elena stayed in the guest room, packing and unpacking her bag, trying to convince herself she wasn't about to walk into another nightmare. Around midnight, she heard a noise outside. A car engine. Gravel crunching. She went to the window, looked out. 3 black SUVs were pulling up the driveway. Her heart stopped. She ran downstairs, found Roman in the entryway with Alexei. Both men were armed. They're here, Elena said. I know, Roman replied. What do we do? You stay inside. Lock yourself in the office. Don't come out until I tell you. Roman, Elena. He grabbed her shoulders, his grip firm but not painful. Trust me. Please. She looked into his eyes and saw something she hadn't expected. Fear. Not for himself. For her. Okay, she whispered. She ran to the office, locked the door, and crouched behind the desk. Through the walls she heard voices, shouting, the front door opening. And then Victor's voice, clear as day. Where is she? Elena's blood turned to ice. Roman's voice came next, calm and controlled. You're trespassing. I'm retrieving my wife. She's not your wife anymore, and she's not here. Bullshit. I know she's here. I know you're hiding her. You can think whatever you want, but unless you've got a warrant, you need to leave. There was a pause. Then Victor laughed. You think you're protecting her? You think you're some kind of hero? I think you need to get off my property before this gets ugly. It's already ugly, Victor said, his voice dropping. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Neither do you. The tension in the air was suffocating. Elena pressed her hands over her mouth, trying not to make a sound. Then she heard footsteps, heavy, moving through the house. Victor's men were searching. Her pulse hammered in her ears. The footsteps got closer, stopped outside the office door. The handle turned, locked. Someone knocked, hard. Elena, Victor called through the door. I know you're in there. Open the door. She didn't move. Elena, we're going home, now. She's not going anywhere with you. Roman's voice came from the hallway. Move, Victor said. No. I said move. Elena heard a scuffle. Something hit the wall. She couldn't take it anymore. She stood, unlocked the door, and stepped out. Victor was standing in the hallway, two of his security men flanking him. Roman was between them and the office, Alexei at his side. Victor's face changed when he saw her. Elena. His voice was soft now, concerned. Thank God. Come here. She didn't move. Elena, we're leaving. Now. No, she said, and her voice didn't shake. I'm not going anywhere with you. Victor's expression hardened. You don't have a choice. Yes, I do. You're my wife. Not for long. Victor's jaw clenched. You're making a mistake. The only mistake I made was marrying you. For a moment, Victor just stared at her. Then he smiled. It was the smile she'd learned to fear, the one that came right before something bad happened. You think this is over? He said quietly. You think you can just walk away? I will destroy you, Elena. I will take everything. Your reputation, your credibility, your future. And when I'm done, you'll have nothing left except the memory of thinking you could beat me. Elena stepped forward. You already tried that, she said, and I'm still here. Victor's smile faded. Roman moved closer to Elena, his presence solid and unyielding. You need to leave, Roman said. Now. Victor looked at him, really looked at him, and something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe. Or calculation. I know who you are, Victor said slowly. Good. Then you know what I'm capable of. Victor's men shifted, hands moving toward their jackets. Alexei's hand went to his waistband. The air crackled with violence about to happen, and then Victor stepped back. This isn't over, he said. Yes, Elena said. It is. Victor turned and walked out. His men followed. The SUVs pulled away, gravel spraying. Elena's legs gave out. Roman caught her before she hit the floor. It's okay, he said quietly. He's gone. He'll come back. Let him. Elena looked up at him, tears she hadn't realized she was crying streaking her face. Why are you doing this? She asked again. And this time Roman answered. Because I've spent my whole life being the kind of man people are afraid of, he said. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of being the problem. For once, I want to be the solution. Elena didn't know what to say, so she just held on, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt like maybe she wasn't alone. The house felt different after Victor left. Quieter, but not in a peaceful way. More like the silence that came after a gunshot, when your ears were still ringing and you weren't sure if it was over or if another round was coming. Elena sat on the couch in the living room, wrapped in a blanket Alexei had brought her, even though she wasn't cold. Roman was on the phone again, pacing near the windows, his voice low and clipped. She couldn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. He was calling in reinforcements. When he hung up, he came and sat across from her. "You should eat something," he said. "I'm not hungry." "When's the last time you ate?" Elena couldn't remember. "I don't know." Roman stood, went to the kitchen, came back with toast and water. He set them on the coffee table in front of her. "Eat," he said again. Not unkind, but firm. Elena picked up the toast. It tasted like cardboard, but she forced herself to chew, to swallow. Roman watched her until she'd finished half of it, then nodded. "He's going to escalate," Roman said. "I know. I mean really escalate. Tonight was a test. He wanted to see if you'd break, if you'd come back on your own. You didn't, so now he's going to get nasty." Elena set down the toast. "How much worse can it get?" Roman's expression darkened. "You don't want to know." "Yes, I do." He was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Victor's the kind of man who thinks in terms of ownership. You were his. In his mind, you still are. And when someone takes what's his, he doesn't just want it back. He wants to punish everyone involved, including you, especially me. Elena's chest tightened. "I never wanted you to be in danger because of me." "I'm always in danger," Roman said simply. "That's just how I live. This doesn't change anything." "It changes everything." "No, it doesn't." The certainty in his voice should have been comforting. Instead, it scared her. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we finish what we started." "How?" Roman leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "The federal investigation into Hale Industries is just the beginning. I've got people digging deeper, following money trails, looking for connections Victor doesn't want exposed. When we have enough, we're going to bury him. Publicly, legally, completely. And if that doesn't work," Roman's eyes met hers, "then I do it another way." Elena didn't ask what that meant. She was pretty sure she already knew. The next morning, Cartwright called with news. "Victor's lawyers filed an emergency motion," he said. "They're trying to freeze your bank accounts, claiming you have access to marital funds that belong to him." Elena's stomach dropped. "Can they do that?" "They can try, but we'll fight it. The problem is, it's going to tie up your access to money for a while." "How long?" "Could be weeks, maybe longer." Elena looked at Roman, who was standing nearby, already shaking his head. "She doesn't need the money," Roman said into the phone, loud enough for Cartwright to hear. "That's not the point," Cartwright replied. "Victor's trying to control the narrative. Make it look like she's dependent on him, that she can't survive without him. It's psychological warfare." "Then we hit back," Roman said. "With what?" "I'll have something for you by tomorrow." Cartwright hesitated. "Roman, whatever you're planning, don't ask questions you don't want answers to." "That's exactly what I'm worried about." Roman hung up. Elena stood. "What are you planning? Something Victor won't see coming?" "That's not an answer." "It's the one you're getting." Elena's frustration boiled over. "Stop doing that. Stop shutting me out." "I'm not shutting you out." "Yes, you are. You keep making decisions, taking risks, and you won't tell me what you're doing or why. How am I supposed to trust you when you won't be honest with me?" Roman's jaw tightened. "You want honesty?" "Yes." "Fine." Victor's not just a businessman. He's got connections to people who make their money in ways that don't show up on tax returns. Weapons dealers, money launderers, people who solve problems with violence when the law gets inconvenient. And I know this because I used to be one of those people. Elena's breath caught. Roman continued, his voice hard. "I spent 15 years in that world. Did things I'm not proud of. Hurt people who probably didn't deserve it. Made a lot of money and lost a lot of things that mattered. And when I finally got out, I told myself I was done, that I'd never go back. And now I'm going back. For you." The weight of those words hung in the air between them. Elena's voice came out small. "I never asked you to do that." "I know, but I'm doing it anyway." "Why?" Roman looked away. "Because you remind me of someone." "Who?" He didn't answer for a long time. Then quietly, he said, "My sister." Elena felt the floor shift beneath her. "You have a sister?" "Had." Roman's voice was flat, distant. "She died 10 years ago." "What happened?" "She married the wrong man. Someone like Victor, rich, charming, dangerous. I didn't see it at first. None of us did. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. She tried to leave him. He didn't let her. And one night, she didn't come home. Elena's throat closed up. They ruled it an accident, Roman continued. Said she fell down the stairs, but I saw the autopsy photos. That wasn't a fall. That was murder. And the man who did it walked away clean because he had money and lawyers and connections. Roman, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Just understand why I'm doing this. I couldn't save her, but I can save you. Elena didn't know what to say, so she did the only thing she could think of. She walked over and hugged him. Roman went rigid at first, like he'd forgotten how to accept comfort, but then, slowly, his arms came up around her. They stood like that for a long moment. When they finally pulled apart, Elena saw something in Roman's eyes she hadn't seen before. Hope. We're going to end this, he said quietly. I believe you, Elena replied. And for the first time, she actually did. That afternoon, Roman took Elena into the city. She'd been cooped up in the house for weeks, and the change of scenery was both overwhelming and liberating. They drove in silence, Roman navigating the streets with the ease of someone who knew every shortcut, every back route. He pulled up in front of a building Elena didn't recognize. Sleek glass facade, unmarked entrance, the kind of place that screamed money and discretion. Where are we? She asked, meeting someone who can help. They went inside, took an elevator to the 12th floor, and walked into an office that looked more like a penthouse apartment. Modern furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows, art on the walls that probably cost more than Elena's first car. A woman stood by the window, looking out at the city. She turned when they entered. She was maybe 50, dressed in a sharp black suit with silver hair cut in a precise bob and eyes that missed nothing. Roman, she said. Her voice had an accent Elena couldn't place. European, maybe. Katya, Roman replied. The woman's gaze shifted to Elena. This is her? Yes. Katya walked closer, studying Elena like she was evaluating a piece of art. Elena forced herself not to look away. You've caused quite a stir, Katya said finally. I didn't mean to. Intention doesn't matter. Results do. Katya gestured to the couch. Sit. Elena sat. Roman remained standing. Katya settled into a chair across from them, crossing her legs. Roman tells me you need help with your husband. Soon-to-be ex-husband, Elena said. Good. I don't like working with people who can't commit to leaving. Katya pulled out a tablet, tapped it a few times. Victor Hale, 42, billionaire, philanthropist, wife-beater. Impressive how many people don't see the contradiction. Elena flinched at the bluntness. What I'm about to tell you, Katya continued, stays in this room. Understood? Elena nodded. Victor's public image is carefully crafted, but underneath he's sloppy, arrogant. He thinks his money makes him untouchable. It doesn't. Katya swiped through the tablet, then turned it to show Elena. It was a bank statement. Multiple offshore accounts, transactions in the millions. What is this? Elena asked. Evidence of tax evasion, money laundering, and embezzlement. Victor's been moving money out of his company for years, funneling it into personal accounts he thinks no one knows about. How did you get this? Katya smiled. I'm very good at my job. Elena looked at Roman. You hired her? Katya's a forensic accountant, Roman said. Best in the business. I prefer the term financial investigator, Katya corrected. But yes, I find things people don't want found. And you found all this? This is just the beginning. Katya took back the tablet. With what I have so far, we can prove Victor's been committing fraud for years. The federal investigation that's already underway? This will make it 10 times worse. Elena's pulse quickened. How do we use it? Carefully, Katya said. If we release this too soon, Victor's lawyers will find a way to spin it or bury it. We need to wait for the right moment. When's that? When he's at his weakest, when the public's already doubting him, when one more scandal will be the thing that breaks him completely. Elena looked at Roman. You've been planning this the whole time. Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because I needed to make sure it would work before I gave you hope. Elena wanted to be angry at him for keeping secrets, but instead she just felt overwhelmed. What do I do? She asked. You stay alive. Katya said. You stay visible. You keep telling your story, and when the time comes, you let us handle the rest. Elena nodded slowly. Katya stood. Roman has my number. When you're ready, call me. She left the room, heels clicking on the hardwood. Elena looked at Roman. She's terrifying. She's effective, Roman replied. That's what matters. They left the building and got back in the SUV. Roman didn't start the engine right away. You okay? He asked. Elena thought about it. I don't know. I feel like I'm watching someone else's life, like this can't actually be happening. It is happening, and it's going to get harder before it gets easier. I know. Roman started the car. You want to go back to the house? Elena looked out the window at the city moving around them. People walking, living their lives, completely unaware of the war being waged just beneath the surface. No, she said. Not yet. Can we just drive for a while? Roman nodded. They drove. For the first time in weeks, Elena felt like she could breathe. That night, Victor made his next move. Elena was in the guest room when her phone buzzed with a notification. A news alert. Victor Hale's wife. Elena Cross. A history of instability? Her hand shook as she opened the article. It was a hit piece, detailed, vicious, methodical. It talked about her dropping out of college, framed it as evidence of an inability to commit. It mentioned a brief hospitalization when she was 19, a panic attack after her mother's death, and spun it as a history of mental illness. It included quotes from anonymous sources who claimed she'd always been fragile, dramatic, attention-seeking. Elena read it twice, feeling sicker with each word. She found Roman in his office. He's trying to destroy me, she said, shoving the phone at him. Roman read the article, his expression hardening with each paragraph. This is defamation, he said. No, it's true. Parts of it anyway. I did drop out. I was hospitalized. He's just twisting it into something ugly. That's still defamation. It won't matter. People will believe it. Roman set down the phone. Then we give them something else to believe. Like what? The truth. All of it. Elena shook her head. I already did that. Harper's article, that was the beginning, Roman interrupted. This is you taking control of the narrative completely. No more journalists asking questions. No more lawyers filtering your words. Just you telling your story, unedited. How? A press conference. Elena's stomach dropped. I can't. Yes, you can. Roman, I'll fall apart. No, you won't. He stood, walked around the desk. You've survived 2 years with a man who tried to break you. You escaped. You fought back. You stood up to him in this house 3 days ago and didn't flinch. You're stronger than you think you are. I don't feel strong. Strength isn't a feeling, it's a choice. Elena looked at him, searching for certainty she didn't have. What if I mess it up? She whispered. Then you mess it up, but you do it on your terms. Elena thought about Victor sitting in his mansion, crafting narratives, controlling the story. She thought about every time he'd told her she was weak, stupid, worthless. She thought about the woman she used to be before him, and she realized Roman was right. Okay, she said, let's do it. Roman nodded. I'll set it up. The press conference was scheduled for 3 days later at a hotel in the city. Cartwright helped arrange it, reaching out to journalists he trusted, making sure the right people would be in the room. Elena spent those 3 days preparing. She wrote out what she wanted to say, practiced in front of a mirror, then threw it all away and decided to just speak from the heart. Roman stayed close, offering support without hovering. Lane came by to help her pick out clothes. Something professional, but not cold. Approachable, but not weak. The morning of the press conference, Elena woke up at 5 and couldn't fall back asleep. She found Roman on the back deck, smoking again. You're going to be fine, he said without turning around. You sound pretty confident. I am. Why? Because I've seen who you are when you're not scared, and that person is formidable. Elena sat down beside him. What if Victor shows up? He won't, too risky. He'll let his lawyers do the talking. And if he does? Roman looked at her. Then I'll handle it. Elena believed him. They arrived at the hotel at 10. The conference room was already filling up. Journalists, cameras, lights. Cartwright was there, looking nervous but determined. Elena felt like she might throw up. "You don't have to do this," Roman said quietly. "Yes, I do." "No, you could walk out right now. No one would blame you." Elena looked at him. "Would you?" "No, but I'd understand." She took a breath. "I'm not walking out." "Okay." They went inside. Elena sat at a table at the front of the room, Cartwright on one side, Roman standing in the back. The lights were blinding. She couldn't see most of the faces, just shapes and cameras. Cartwright leaned in. "You ready?" "No." "Good. That means you care." He stood and addressed the room. "Thank you all for coming. My client, Elena Cross, has agreed to answer questions about her marriage to Victor Hale and the allegations she's made. She'll make a brief statement first, then take questions." He sat back down. Elena looked out at the crowd. Her hands were shaking. She started talking anyway. "My name is Elena Cross. 2 years ago, I married a man I thought I loved. 6 months ago, I realized that if I stayed with him, he was going to kill me." The room went silent. "I'm not here to ask for sympathy. I'm here to tell the truth. Victor Hale is not the man you see in magazines or on television. He's not a philanthropist or a devoted husband. He's a man who uses his money and power to control and hurt the people closest to him. And for 2 years, I let him." Elena's voice cracked, but she kept going. "I let him because I was scared, because he convinced me I deserved it, because leaving seemed impossible. But I did leave, and now he's trying to destroy me for it. He's calling me unstable, a liar, a gold digger. He's using every tool he has to make sure no one believes me." She paused, swallowed hard. "But I'm still here, and I'm not going to be quiet anymore." The room erupted with questions. Elena answered them, one by one. Some were sympathetic. Some were hostile. She didn't dodge any of them. Yes, she'd been hospitalized for a panic attack. No, that didn't make her mentally ill. Yes, she'd dropped out of college because Victor didn't want her to finish. Yes, she'd signed a prenup. Under duress, with a lawyer Victor had chosen. The questions kept coming, and Elena kept answering until her voice was hoarse and her hands had stopped shaking. Finally, Cartwright stood. "That's all the time we have. Thank you." The journalist shouted more questions, but Cartwright guided Elena out of the room. In the hallway, away from the cameras, Elena's legs gave out. Roman caught her. "You did it," he said. Elena couldn't speak. She just nodded. They got her to the car, and as they pulled away from the hotel, Elena looked out the window and saw her face on the news screens in the lobby. She'd done it, she told her story, and there was no taking it back. Within hours, the internet exploded. Elena's press conference went viral. News outlets replayed clips. Social media lit up with opinions, some supportive, some vicious, all loud. Victor issued a response through his lawyers, calling Elena's claims slanderous and threatening further legal action. But something had shifted. People were listening. Not everyone believed her, but enough did. And that was enough. That night, Elena sat in Roman's office, watching the coverage with a strange mix of relief and exhaustion. "You changed the narrative," Roman said. "Did I?" "Yes. Victor's on the defensive now. He's reacting instead of controlling. That's when people make mistakes." Elena looked at him. "What happens next?" "We wait for him to make one." "And then?" Roman's expression hardened. "Then we finish this." Elena nodded. For the first time since this whole thing started, she felt like maybe, just maybe, they were going to win. But she also knew that Victor wasn't done, and neither was she. Victor's mistake came exactly 1 week after Elena's press conference, and it came in the form of rage disguised as strategy. Roman got the call at 2 in the morning. Elena heard his phone buzzing from her room down the hall, then footsteps, then his voice, low, tense, speaking that language she still didn't understand. She got up, pulled on a sweater, and found him in the hallway. "What happened?" she asked. Roman's face was unreadable in the dark. "Victor just made a very stupid decision." "What kind of decision?" "The kind that's going to cost him everything." He walked downstairs, Elena following. In the office, he pulled up something on his laptop and turned the screen toward her. It was security footage. Not from Roman's house. From somewhere else. A hotel based on the lobby visible in the frame. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m., less than 3 hours ago. The footage showed Victor entering the hotel with a woman who wasn't Elena. They were close, intimate, his hand on her lower back as they walked toward the elevators. Elena's stomach turned. "Who is she?" she asked. "Her name's Melissa Grant. She's a lobbyist, works with several of Victor's companies." Roman fast-forwarded the footage. "They've been seeing each other for at least 8 months, maybe longer." Elena sat down hard. "How did you get this?" "I have someone inside the hotel. They've been watching Victor for weeks, waiting for him to slip up. Tonight he did." Elena stared at the screen, watching Victor and this other woman disappear into an elevator. Part of her felt nothing. Part of her felt vindicated. Part of her wanted to laugh at the sheer stupidity of it. "He's been calling me unstable," she said quietly, "saying I abandoned him, and he's been cheating the whole time." "Not just cheating," Roman said. "He took her to a public hotel, used his real name, paid with a credit card that'll show up in financial records. He got sloppy because he's angry, and angry people make mistakes." "What do we do with this?" Roman closed the laptop. "We give it to Cartwright. Let him decide the best way to use it." "When?" "Now." Roman made the call. 20 minutes later, Cartwright was at the house, looking like he'd gotten dressed in the dark, which he probably had. Roman showed him the footage. Cartwright watched it twice, then leaned back and laughed. "He's an idiot," Cartwright said. "He's arrogant," Roman corrected. "There's a difference. Either way, this changes everything." Cartwright looked at Elena. "How do you want to play this?" Elena thought about it. About Victor's face on that talk show, playing the worried husband. About the articles calling her unstable. About 2 years of bruises and silence. "I want to destroy him," she said. Cartwright nodded. "Then that's what we'll do." By noon the next day, the footage had been leaked to 3 major news outlets, along with records showing Victor had paid for the hotel room on a company credit card, which meant he'd potentially committed fraud by using business funds for personal expenses. The story broke like a wildfire. Billionaire Victor Hale caught cheating while wife claims abuse. Hale Industries CEO used company funds for affair, records show. Victor Hale's public image crumbles amid scandal. Elena watched it unfold from Roman's office, her phone buzzing with notifications she didn't bother reading. The news cycle that had been split on her story suddenly swung hard in her direction. Even outlets that had questioned her credibility were now running pieces about Victor's hypocrisy. "It's working," she said. Roman was standing by the window, arms crossed. "It's not over yet." "What do you mean?" "Victor's going to fight back. He'll claim the footage is fake, that you manipulated it, that this is all part of some conspiracy against him." "Will people believe him?" "Some will, but not enough." Elena's phone rang. Cartwright. "Turn on Channel 7, he said. Elena grabbed the remote, switched to the news. A reporter was standing outside Hale Industries headquarters, where a crowd had gathered. Some were protesters holding signs. Others were journalists with cameras. And then the doors opened and Victor walked out, flanked by lawyers. He looked terrible. Rumpled suit, exhausted eyes, the kind of appearance that suggested he'd been up all night dealing with damage control. He stepped up to a microphone. "I'm here to address the recent allegations against me," Victor said, his voice steady but strained. "The footage that's been circulating is real. I won't deny that. I made a mistake, a deeply personal mistake that I regret, but that doesn't change the fact that my wife, my estranged wife, has been waging a campaign to destroy me based on lies and manipulation." Elena felt her blood pressure spike. Victor continued, "Elena is unwell. She needs help, not a platform. And I hope that once this is all over, she gets the treatment she needs." The implication was clear. He was still trying to paint her as the problem. But this time, the reporters weren't buying it. "Mr. Hale, do you deny hitting your wife?" "Mr. Hale, how do you explain using company funds for personal expenses?" "Mr. Hale, are you stepping down from Hale Industries?" Victor's jaw tightened. "I'm not taking questions at this time." He turned and walked back inside, his lawyers scrambling to keep up. Elena turned off the TV. "He's panicking," Roman said. "Good." That afternoon, Katya called. "It's time," she said. Roman put her on speaker. "Time for what?" Elena asked. "To release the financial records. Victor's distracted, his credibility's shot. and the federal investigation is about to move from preliminary to formal. If we drop the evidence now, it'll be the final nail in the coffin. Elena looked at Roman. Do it. You're sure? Katya asked. I'm sure. Katya hung up. 6 hours later, the records went public. Not through the news. Through an anonymous tip to the Securities and Exchange Commission, accompanied by a detailed breakdown of every offshore account, every suspicious transaction, every piece of evidence that proved Victor had been embezzling from his own company for years. The SEC issued a statement within hours. They were opening a formal investigation into Victor Hale and Hale Industries. Victor's stock price went into freefall. By the next morning, he'd lost over $1 billion in net worth. Elena watched the numbers drop on the financial news, feeling a strange sense of detachment. This was real. This was actually happening. How long until he's arrested? She asked Roman. Could be days, could be weeks. The SEC moves slow. I don't care how long it takes, as long as it happens. Roman looked at her. How are you feeling? Elena thought about it. Empty. I thought I'd feel satisfied or vindicated or something, but I just feel tired. That's normal. Is it? You've been running on adrenaline for months. Now that the fight's almost over, your body's realizing how exhausted it actually is. Elena leaned back in her chair. What happens after? After he's arrested? After the divorce is final? After all of this is done? That's up to you. Everyone keeps saying that. But I don't know what I want anymore. I spent so long just trying to survive that I forgot how to think past the next day. Roman sat down across from her. Then take your time figuring it out. You don't have to have all the answers right now. What did you do after you got out of that life you talked about? Roman was quiet for a moment. I tried to disappear, bought this house, cut ties with everyone, convinced myself I could just exist in silence. Took me a long time to realize that wasn't living. That was just surviving in a different way. What changed? I met someone who needed help, and helping them reminded me that I could be more than the worst things I'd done. Elena understood he was talking about her. I don't know how to thank you, she said quietly. You don't have to. Yes, I do. You saved my life. No, Roman said. You saved your own life. I just gave you the space to do it. Elena wanted to argue, but the words stuck in her throat. The next week passed in a blur of legal proceedings and media coverage. Victor was formally charged with securities fraud, embezzlement, and tax evasion. His lawyers tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the evidence was too strong. The federal prosecutor was pushing for a trial. Cartwright filed the final divorce papers with the new evidence: the affair, the financial crimes, the security footage showing years of abuse. Victor's lawyers tried to fight it, but they were buried under the weight of everything else. The divorce was granted in record time. Elena Cross was no longer married to Victor Hale. She got the news sitting in Cartwright's office, Roman beside her. It's over, Cartwright said, sliding the signed papers across the desk. Elena stared at them. Her hands didn't shake when she picked them up. Just like that? She asked. Just like that. Elena read through the pages. No alimony, no settlement. She hadn't wanted his money, and Cartwright had made sure she didn't get any of it. What she did get was her freedom, full, legal, uncontested freedom. What happens to Victor now? She asked. He goes to trial, Cartwright said, and based on what the prosecution has, he's going to prison for a very long time. Elena nodded slowly. She thought she'd feel something, relief, satisfaction, closure, but all she felt was tired. They left Cartwright's office and drove back to Roman's house in silence. Elena watched the city pass by the window, thinking about how different everything looked now compared to 6 months ago. Same streets, same buildings, but she was a completely different person. When they got back, Lane was waiting in the kitchen with coffee and what looked like homemade cookies. Heard the news, Lane said. Figured you could use sugar? Elena smiled despite herself. Thank you. She sat at the counter, ate a cookie, and let the reality of it all sink in. She was free. Actually, truly free. What are you going to do now? Lane asked. It was the question everyone kept asking, and Elena still didn't have an answer. I don't know, she admitted. Maybe finish my degree. Maybe travel. Maybe just figure out who I am when I'm not running from someone. Lane nodded. Those all sound like good options. Do you think I can do it? Start over? I think you already have. That night, Elena couldn't sleep again. But this time it wasn't because of fear. It was because her mind was racing with possibilities instead of threats. She found Roman on the back deck, same spot as always. You ever sleep? She asked, sitting beside him. Not much. Me neither. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the wind in the trees. Finally, Elena said, I've been thinking. Yeah? About what comes next. And I think I want to help other people. People like me. Women who are trying to leave but don't know how. Roman looked at her. That's a good idea. You think so? I know so. I'd need money to do it right, a foundation or a shelter or something that actually makes a difference. I can help with that. Elena shook her head. You've already done too much. There's no such thing as too much when it comes to this. Elena looked at him, really looked at him. This man who had saved her without asking for anything in return, who had put himself in danger for a stranger on a plane, who carried the weight of his sister's death like a scar he'd never let heal. Why did you really help me? She asked. And don't say it's because someone helped you once. I want the real reason. Roman was quiet for a long time. Then he said, because I needed to believe I could be someone else. Someone better than the man I used to be, and helping you, it gave me that chance. You were already someone better. I didn't feel like it. Not until I met you. Elena felt something shift between them. Something unspoken but understood. What happens now? She asked. With us? Roman looked out at the forest. That depends. On what? On whether you want there to be an us. Elena's heart kicked against her ribs. She thought about everything Roman had done for her. The safety he'd given her, the space to heal, the way he'd fought for her without asking for anything back. She thought about the fact that she barely knew him, really, that he was still half mystery, half carefully controlled walls. But she also thought about the way he looked at her, like she was strong instead of broken, like she mattered. I don't know what I want yet, Elena said honestly. I'm still figuring out who I am without Victor, and I don't want to jump from one relationship into another before I've even had time to breathe. I understand. But, Elena continued, I don't want to lose you either. Roman finally looked at her. You won't. How do you know? Because I'm not going anywhere. Elena believed him. They sat together until the sun started to rise, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. And for the first time in longer than Elena could remember, she felt something that wasn't fear or exhaustion or determination. She felt peace. 3 months later, Victor Hale was convicted on all charges. Elena didn't go to the trial. She'd given her deposition, provided her testimony, and that was enough. She didn't need to see him in handcuffs to know it was over. Roman called her when the verdict came in. 32 years, he said. Elena was in her new apartment, small, affordable, hers, unpacking boxes of books. Good, she said. How are you feeling? Fine. Normal, is that weird? No, it means you're moving on. Elena smiled. Yeah, I think I am. She'd started taking classes again, finishing the degree she'd abandoned. It was hard, harder than she'd expected, but in a good way. The kind of hard that came from challenging yourself instead of just surviving. She'd also started working with a lawyer to set up a foundation. Nothing big yet, just the framework. But it was a start. A way to turn everything she'd been through into something that might help someone else. Roman had helped with the funding, despite her protests. He'd also helped her find the apartment, set up her bank accounts, navigate the 1,000 small things that came with starting a new life. But he'd kept his distance otherwise, given her space to figure things out. They still talked. Regular calls, occasional dinners, the kind of friendship that felt solid and real. And sometimes, when Elena was alone late at night, she wondered if it would ever become something more. But she wasn't in a hurry to find out. For now, this was enough. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Elena gave her first public speech. It was at a small conference for domestic violence survivors. Nothing huge, just 100 people in a hotel conference room. But it mattered. She stood at the podium, hands shaking only slightly, and told her story. Not the version she'd told the press. The real version. the messy, complicated, imperfect version. She talked about the shame of staying, the fear of leaving, the guilt that came with both. She talked about the moment she'd wanted to give up, the night she'd convinced herself it was her fault, the days she'd believed Victor when he said she was worthless, and she talked about the moment she'd decided to run, not because she was brave, but because she was desperate. "I don't have all the answers," Elena said, looking out at the crowd. "I'm still figuring out who I am without the person who spent years telling me I was nothing. But I know this: leaving was the hardest thing I've ever done, and it was also the best." The room was silent. Then someone started clapping, then someone else, and then the whole room was on their feet. Elena stood there, overwhelmed, and let herself feel it. The support, the understanding, the knowledge that she wasn't alone. After the speech, people came up to talk to her, to thank her, to share their own stories. One woman, maybe 25, with a black eye she'd tried to cover with makeup, grabbed Elena's hand. "I'm leaving tonight," she whispered. "Your story made me realize I can." Elena squeezed her hand. "You can, and you will, and it's going to be the hardest and best thing you ever do." The woman nodded, tears streaming down her face. Elena gave her the number for a shelter, the name of a lawyer who worked pro bono, and a hug that lasted longer than she'd planned. When the woman walked away, Elena felt something click into place. This was what she was supposed to do. Not just survive, but help others survive too. Roman was waiting outside when the conference ended. Elena saw him leaning against his car, and something in her chest loosened. "You came," she said. "Of course I came. How long were you out here?" "The whole time." Elena smiled. "You could have come inside. This was your moment, not mine." They drove back to the city in comfortable silence. But this time, when Roman dropped her off at her apartment, Elena didn't get out of the car right away. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Always. Do you ever regret it, helping me?" Roman looked at her, surprised. "No, never. Why would you ask that?" "Because you put yourself in danger. You made enemies. You went back to a life you were trying to leave behind, all for someone you didn't even know." "I'd do it again," Roman said simply, "in a heartbeat." "Why?" "Because you deserved someone in your corner. And because helping you reminded me that I'm more than the worst things I've done." Elena felt tears prick at her eyes. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything." Roman reached over, squeezed her hand once, then let go. "You did the hard part," he said. "I just gave you the space to do it." Elena got out of the car, but before she closed the door, she leaned back in. "Roman?" "Yeah? I think I'm ready." "For what?" "To figure out what comes next. With you." Roman's expression softened. "Yeah?" "Yeah." "Good," he said, "because I've been waiting." Elena smiled, really smiled, and closed the door. She watched him drive away, then went up to her apartment, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. It was small. It was simple. It was hers. And for the first time in years, Elena felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Not running, not hiding, just living. 1 year after she left Victor, Elena stood in front of a building she'd purchased with money from Roman and donors who believed in what she was trying to do. The sign above the door read, "Second Chance Foundation, a safe haven for survivors." Inside were beds, counselors, lawyers who worked for free, resources for women trying to rebuild their lives. It wasn't perfect. It was underfunded, understaffed, and overwhelming most days. But it was real. And it was helping people. Roman stood beside her, hands in his pockets, looking up at the building. "You did it," he said. "We did it," Elena corrected. "No, this was all you." Elena looked at him. Over the past year, they'd grown closer, slowly, carefully, two people learning to trust again. They weren't perfect. They fought sometimes, disagreed often, and both carried scars that would never fully heal. But they were building something real. Something that wasn't born out of fear or desperation. Something that was just theirs. "I couldn't have done it without you," Elena said. "Yes, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to." Elena took his hand. They stood together, looking at the building, thinking about all the people who would walk through those doors looking for safety. And Elena thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, terrified, broken, convinced she'd never be free. She thought about the woman she was now, still healing, still figuring things out, but stronger than she'd ever imagined. The truth was, freedom wasn't a destination. It was a choice you made every single day, a choice to keep moving forward even when it was hard, a choice to believe you deserved better, a choice to build a life instead of just surviving one. Elena had made that choice, and she was never going back. She looked at Roman, squeezed his hand, and said, "Let's go inside. We've got work to do." He smiled. "Yeah, we do." They walked through the doors together, and Elena Cross, survivor, fighter, architect of her own future, stepped into the life she'd fought so hard to claim. Not as someone's wife, not as someone's victim, just as herself. And that was more than enough.